feeling is really what makes the world go around. And, people say feelings over facts. Well, then you don't know humans very well, because humans are driven primarily by emotion. And so just expressing ourselves, I think so much of our stress is just the inability to express how we really feel.
Yeah.
It's what happens when the expectations of one another are so impossibly high that there's nothing but failure, and it turns into the spiral. And sometimes there's like these divine reasons why you choose to do whatever it is that you do that's maybe subconscious in the moment. And we all have that gift that God's like, hey, this is yours, go use it. And I'll ask one question and one question only, is I'll ask, reveal to me what I don't yet know. The vast majority of people don't feel alignment because they don't get encouragement. I could be somebody's moment at any given time. And so I've always got to show up even when I don't feel, especially when I don't feel like showing up. I've got to show up knowing that, like, hey, this could be the axiomatic change in their life right now today. People know what to do, but until they're encouraged and believed in somebody and get an opportunity to say, oh, wait, that person I really admire believes in me. Wow. Okay. At least I'll just do this first thing for them. And now I become somebody who can do hard things. And I show up to the gym every day and I start to fall in love with suffering. Highly functional families, accountability and honesty are at the forefront. Relationships I see that don't work out are ones that have expectations of one another.
Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. You are in for a treat today. I have Devan Kline in the studio with me. Devan is just up the street from me in Huntersville, North Carolina. Devan was born in Battle Creek, Michigan, and he grew up in very rough conditions. Most of Devan's childhood was riddled with violence, government assistance, drug abuse, alcoholism, moving from state to state, and capped off by abandonment from his mom as a teen. He spent his time on sports fields and creating businesses to escape his home life, and gives credit to baseball and Morgan, his now wife, for saving his life. He met Morgan at 12 years old, and they would eventually get married, open a business, and start a family 12 years later. They now share a wonderful life together, living in Cornelius, North Carolina, with their daughter Cameron and two sons, Max and Ryan. Devan played collegiate baseball at Central Michigan University and left school to continue his baseball career with the San Francisco Giants, which ended a few years later. His baseball journey led him to his love for health and fitness because he experienced the joy from helping his host families achieve more happiness through health. This sparked the idea of Burn Boot Camp, and since Devan has dedicated his life's work to helping families all over the world, today he is the leader of thousands of amazing people employed by Burn Boot Camp who share the vision of helping women achieve more than they thought possible for themselves and their families. Devan defines success as making every life he touches healthier and happier. And if you asked him, how do you do that? He will reply, you teach them to love themselves today so they're inspired by the possibilities of tomorrow. Devan Kline, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, Christy, thank you. And you nailed that word for word. Couldn't have said it more concisely. Thanks for an amazing intro and also everything that you do to bring people together. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, it's when I read biographies, autobiographies, it's interesting because there's so much there. There's so much feeling. There's so much pain. There's so much motivation, right? And it's kind of like the hero's journey. Like, okay, it was awful, but look where we ended up. So, I want to go back to your childhood just for a second there, because I read your book, your first book, and got to hear a little bit more about what that looked like, and I want to talk about the feelings. Like what were you feeling growing up in an environment where there was physical abuse amongst your parents, there was addiction, the abuse was coming your way as well, emotionally and physically? Like, what as a child were you feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question. Feeling is really what makes the world go around. And, people say feelings over facts. Well, then you don't know humans very well, because humans are driven primarily by emotion. And so, for me growing up, the environment that I was placed in was just normal for me. Like in retrospect, when I go back and I kind of like activate my memory and I sit down and I think about, what the hell happened back then and why did it happen? And, how did that, translate to make me who I am today? That's when you really look back and you start to, make some connections. Now I'm a mature grown man. Back then when I was 12, I knew it wasn't right. I felt intuitively that it was wrong. I felt intuitively that I needed to protect myself. I know today that I still don't like gossip in the form of when people talk about other people, because for me that was triggering. Back then in a small town, everybody knows your family. My dad was making headlines for his behavior. It wasn't just, kind of under the radar. And he was a popular athlete. Like, he was a Detroit Tiger. He had a
Oh,
full
wow.
ride to Xavier that he ended up foregoing for basketball. He was a McDonald's All-American basketball player. And so, like, he was the guy in high school and college. Like, and so everybody knew him. And then anytime that I would hear people talking about other people, I was always afraid they were going to bring up my family and my situation. And,
Uh,
to this day, I'm still making those connections of like, why does it trigger me that when like people are just talking gossip, like in a harmful, like in a non-harmful way, right? Like, it
yeah.
triggers me for some reason. I don't like being around it. But that's a me problem. And that was because, back in the day when I was trying to survive, that was a survival mechanism, was, to try to run away from that and block it out as much as I could. So like you said, I was over at Morgan's house, like her family took care of me. My big brother took care of me a lot. I was on the ball fields. I was in the weight room. I was the kid that hated school, but I would go to school early, just to get away. And so, yeah, it's interesting how as you grow throughout life, like every year you're almost like this caterpillar who's like shedding themselves, and you're becoming this butterfly. And every year you kind of people have these mini crises where they're like, that stage between like the caterpillar and butterfly, where the butterfly's there, it's hatched, but it's also can't fly yet. And it's like, figure, it's like, oh shoot, I got some wings back here, I wonder what these things can do, right? And we go through that each and every year. And if we're not, then we're going to be stagnant. So my point is, I'm constantly every year taking some time for original thought to say, hey, why am I the way I am? It has to do with, each year when I've, you know, gone through this metamorphosis of being a caterpillar growing into this butterfly. Every year that's going to happen. That question right there, that you just posed, that's what I'm currently thinking about when it comes to that question: is why does it trigger me when people talk about people and not ideas? And then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well then, I don't know. I think that's probably something to do with it. But
Yeah. I wonder if it was like, that's a piece of your identity, right? Like, are they judging you and they don't even know you? They judging your family.
yeah,
Like, did
yeah,
you
and
get rolled
which
underneath all of that somehow?
probably makes it easy for me to handle scrutiny as well, because like
Mm,
there's a pro and con to every situation, right? So back then
yeah.
it was normal for me. I felt like it wasn't intuitive, but I now can handle things that at a sensitivity scale, on the stress scale, I can handle things that I see people that have been doing this 30 years longer than me. They're incapable emotionally to handle a lot of things. And I'm thankful for the way that I grew up. Like,
Mm,
I've reconciled, I've given, forget, I've written letters to the
yeah.
people in my life, to myself at certain ages, to my parents at those ages, just expressing ourselves. I think so much of our stress is just the inability to express how we really feel,
Yeah.
or the inability to have an ear, such as yourself, somebody that's really curious, that wants to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I can agree with that. So is it fair to say that your reputation is important to you?
Yeah, I think I guess I don't see a world in which someone's reputation wouldn't be important to them. But here's the distinction for me: is it the reputation that I'm proud of, or is it the reputation that I'm materially doing well, but in the inside I'm getting eaten alive? Then I'm living the reputation of like somebody else's perspective of who I am. And so success for me is, can I wake up every day and, I'm experiencing a lot of material success in my life, like the business and the helping of, people, get to the next level in their lives. But like, what good is that if I'm unhappy doing it? And so, no, I feel really good. I'm happy as I've ever been, um, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I feel like, all the past demons from all the chaos of my life have been worked out now at 37. And I've found a way to associate a positive, uplifting, inspiring meaning to them, to the negative events that most people would say, man, that I don't know how that didn't crush you. Like, how did you do that? Well, you have to manufacture a positive association to that event that you had no control over whether it happened to you or not, but you do have control over that outcome and that meaning.
Yeah, yeah. I just interviewed Eddie Wilson. I don't know if you know who that is. Last week, I was up in Washington D.C. and it's I'm always so intrigued by incredibly successful people that are doing the work also, right? Because you can use that stuff to fuel you, and it's great to be able to tap into that, but to then continue to go deep with it and go, okay, what's still here? Why am I feeling this way? And I know you and I sat down in your office for a good hour, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we could have gone for hours, because I am just so impressed by the work that you've done, and that it's just not the darkness that is fueling all of this. You can leverage that when you want to, but there's so many more layers there of understanding human behavior. But if we go back to your childhood, like, at what point did it turn around for you? At what point did you say, like, I'm freaking done with this, I'm going to figure out a better way? Like, can you tell us, like, was there a moment in time when all that changed for you?
Yeah, probably far too young, based on what I know about my kids now and their level of maturity and what their uh, emotional capacity is. But there was an instance when I was 12 years old, and I had moved all around like the West Coast when I was in kindergarten. My mom pulled me out, took me and my little brother, without unbeknownst to my father, took me to Arizona, to Mississippi, to California, to Washington State, back to California, back to Arizona, before we finally ended up back in Michigan. So we were like gypsy souls there for a handful of years. These were all my elementary years, and then I came back to Michigan in fourth grade, and I was 10 or 11 years old. 2 years later, 12 and a half years old, my mom and dad, they moved back in together. They're like an atomic bomb when they get together. They're like have so much. They had so much deep love for one another that like, but they didn't know, they had no emotional intelligence, so it just would manifest into fighting and arguing. And that it's what happens when the expectations of one another are so impossibly high that there's nothing but failure, and it turns into the spiral. And so, my mom and dad would fight on the constant, like fist. I'm not talking about like argue fight, like fist fight on the constant. And we had a very small house, and the walls were paper thin. You could hear the heat kick on, from anywhere in the house at any given time, right? That type of home and structure. And so I'd sit on the stairs to the basement where my room was, and I would listen to this over and over and over and over and over and over, but always way too scared to like go up and do something about it. Well, I'm like starting to hit puberty now. I'm like 12, 13 years old. Like I'm getting a little more confident, a little hair on my lip right there. So I think I'm the man, and I try to go upstairs during one of their more physical altercations, and I try to step in. And next thing that I know, because I'm scared for my mom's life at the time, my dad's a big individual. I step in, and next thing that I know, I'm out cold, and I'm being wrapped up by a female police officer on my side porch as my dad's getting carted away in handcuffs for child abuse. And that was the day that I remember this woman. I forget her name, but she was very loving. She was very sweet. She was very consoling, and she was a police officer. And she's just sitting there like, "It's okay, buddy. Like you're gonna be okay." And she like kept consoling me. And there was like in that moment, I knew it was just like me and myself and God, and I was gonna have to. I maybe didn't think about it when I was 12, but looking back on it, that was the moment when I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna take care of my family, myself, my sisters. I'm gonna not just break the chain, of my family never going to college. All the as far back as I can see, there's either no relationship with my grandparents, great grandparents, and their kids, or it's a very abusive, violent relationship, alcoholism, drug abuse. I was just gonna break all that. Like I was gonna be done with it, and that was the moment in time when I realized that, hey, I I have to be the man of the house, and that's a tough thing for a kid, who's just going into middle school to have to deal with, I think.
Yeah, wow. I read in your book that you started to work really hard and save your money, and you bought yourself a car.
Yeah, yeah.
And then your mom did something with that car. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So this kind of all blends in together. This is like the story of my teenage years. So I'm 12. I know because my older brother has a car. It's freedom.
Yeah.
It's freedom. He's my half brother. He lives with his dad across town.
Oh,
But he and I are close. He picks me up, he takes me around. I cannot wait to get a car. I can see the horizon. If I don't go work and get my own money, I'm not going to get a car. And I'm pretty sure my dad was telling me these things at the time too. So I started working on the roof with my uncles. I would, if you've ever seen people work on a roof or been on a roof yourself, you know that to tear the roof off, you got to take these pick forks and you got to pluck nails out, and it's hot in the sun. You're just melting, and the tar is amplifying the heat, and you got to peel the tar paper off. And it's just, you're by the end of the day, you got cuts all over you from the shingles that you had to carry up the ladder. Hardest work I've ever done in my life was working on the roof with my uncles. My dad would take me to these electrical jobs with him. I started my own business in the summer. I would do lawns. In the winter, I would do driveways, and I'd 20 minutes to either cut your lawn or to shovel your driveway. And I would do all the sales, go door to door, knocking on the doors, 20-minute snow removal or 20-minute lawn mowing. And we'd only choose houses that we could do in 20 minutes, and we'd charge $20, and then we'd split it, and we'd just do a bunch of them in a day. So that was like my first franchise before I even knew what the entrepreneur word was. And then I found this little site called eBay after a couple of years of like burning and selling CDs at school. I found this site called eBay. So I was saving up to go get a car. All my money that I made in this with the snow shoveling businesses and on the roof, I saved all that up. I bought like a $2,500 Pontiac, or a Ford Probe at an auction. My dad helped me buy one at an auction. And then I flipped that car 3 or 4 times to get a Pontiac. And then that Pontiac, when I was 6, this was in 1 year. Like as soon as I got the car, I flipped it 3 times on eBay and made some money. Then my Pontiac, when I went to a baseball game in Kissimmee, Florida, was stolen from me by my mother, and was taken and sold and used as moving money so that she could move back out of town, and without any of us knowing, as we were out of town. And so, I didn't like that. I thought that was pretty nasty, but I had never been. My dad was always a very resilient person. Like even though he didn't reach his fullest potential or actualize himself, he was always very resilient. Like he could just keep going and work with his hands 15 hours a day or do whatever it needed to do. So I had that from him. And so I just kept on, got back on the roofs for a whole summer, saved up another handful of chunk of change. My dad actually split some costs with me on the next car because he felt bad for it. And I ended up going to get another Pontiac, and then I flipped it and flipped it and flipped it and flipped it for the next 2 years. And Morgan helped me do that a lot, actually. And I ended up going to college to play baseball at Central Michigan University I had like 10 or 12,000 bucks, and I had a 2005 Ford Mustang. That was pretty badass. So that was my teenage years. All the while I was playing baseball, I was keeping myself busy doing that. So, to try to keep myself occupied and away from the home life.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the most fascinating things that I would love your take on it is I know that one of the couple things that we have in common. So I grew up in a one stoplight town in Ohio. My family was all, they were putting roofs on, they were building houses. So I got to see how hard that work was, and, taking lunches with my mom to them and making sure they were hydrated and seeing how exhausted they were. So I know everything that you're talking about and how hard you worked very intimately, because it's still the way my family rolls.
It's a
The other
Midwestern
thing,
way. It's a Midwestern way,
it's
isn't it?
always right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Rain or shine, freaking smoldering heat,
that's right.
30 below and wind blowing. But the other thing we have in common is, one of my entry point into personal development was Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
And I had read
You
that.
probably get a lot of him in my first book, because that was post probably like 300 hours of just doing anything I could get my hands on with Tony Robbins. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, I was
amazing,
there too.
brilliant
I
man.
did everything. I went to all of his things. It was really a turning point, a lot of foundational stuff there. But it was interesting where you got your first CD.
Oh yeah,
And so I
yeah.
was like, did they not like how did they get it? Why did they not do it? Did they do it? Like, can you talk a little bit about, so where'd you find it? Where'd you
Yeah,
find that CD?
so my parents had a Personal Power CD by Tony Robbins when he was like doing the CD mail to home programs, and he'd do like the infomercials late night. And do you remember the disc changers, like the 8 CD disc changers? And you just like, okay, so my parents had like this old school stack, AV stack. It weighed like 2,000 pounds. It had all the everything in there that you could possibly need. Okay, so I open it up one day. I'm going to like test out one of the CDs that I'm burning or something to sell at school. This is like junior high era. This is kind of in the middle of all that stuff I was just explaining. And I had the Sony Walkman, as we all know. We had the Sony Walkman and anti-skip technology, and I would plug the Tony Robbins CD in and ride my bike to school. And I probably listened to it, gosh, enough times to where the CD didn't work anymore. And I think about that often because I never asked my dad, who's now passed. I never asked him about why he had that, and I don't speak to my mother. I would be open to speaking to my mother. I just have no idea where she is. I do not believe that she wants to speak to me. But if I did, that'd probably be one of the questions I ask. Whose was that? Why did you have it? Because clearly you don't have that unless you know that you could do better, right? Like if you know you could do better, you probably have a personal power CD laying around,
Yeah.
and and I think that's probably a lot of us in as we're trying to better ourselves, right? We'll go to a seminar, we'll get the tape, we'll do the workout, we'll buy something knowing that we need it, but then the follow through is just a broken promise because then it just sits there and stacks up. And I bought it, but I didn't follow through on the promise I made to myself to actually do it. And so, if they did follow this advice, maybe I'm not who I am today. So maybe it
Right.
was a good thing that they didn't.
Right. Yeah. No, it's and we'll get to burn boot camp here in a little bit, but I love the way that you've operationalized so many things into real life and putting people into action and motion, because that's really what it takes. You can, it's really self-help. The self-help becomes shelf help because nobody's putting you through the paces, and a lot of things get lost like that. But thank goodness that they had that and you stumbled upon it. And the anti-skip, oh my gosh, that was a game changer, wasn't it?
That's the game changer. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a game changer. So, um, you went to college, you played ball, you traveled around, you got to live with host families, and you noticed something in those host families. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Again, I think one of those things that as I go back and examine life and you're going through it naturally, sometimes there's like these divine reasons why you choose to do whatever it is that you do that's maybe subconscious in the moment. And maybe I'm just thinking too deeply about it. Maybe I just did these things out of the good of my heart. But I would travel around staying with host families. If people don't know what that is, it's like a temporary family for a summer when you're a baseball guy and you go out and play in all these leagues and you're not in your hometown. They'll actually take you in. The team will pay them a little bit, but it's basically nothing. And they'll just take care of you because they want their kids to be around baseball players. They
Yeah.
just were fans themselves, or they're just lonely and maybe they got some extra room and you know whatever circumstance. I ended up being in a handful of host families who were actually families. Other people didn't. They'd be in like a house all summer by themselves, which is also a good scenario. But I would always stay with families. And being a professional, aspiring professional baseball player, like I was in the pros, but I wasn't a big leaguer, right? Like there's a big difference. And so I had made it to where I wanted to be yet. And the only way I knew how to get there, going back to my high school days when no scouts were looking at me because I was too small, was fitness nutrition. Like that's where my love for fitness was born. When the scouts looked at me and said, "Hey, kid, you got what they call a live arm, meaning you can throw hard, but you're like 165 pounds soaking wet. You're not a Division I size person. Go put on weight." And so I went and put on weight. I put on 20 pounds in 3 years in high school, doing our high school programming and eating food and learning about nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. So now I get into these host family environments where normal family problems, right? It's not mine. It wasn't
Mhm.
domestic abuse for and large. Like I was an outlier case. I realized that, but most people, they still have mountains to climb, and it's lethargy, it's lack of energy, it's like those things right there, just lack of energy. Like energy is something you can manufacture, and if you don't try to, then it dwindles and it goes away till you're almost like a shell of yourself. And sometimes I'd get in situations where people were in that position, like they just weren't
Mm.
happy with life in general. And well, no wonder, because I look at your diet and it's Wonder Bread and it's Fruit
But
Loops
you
and it's
noticed it at that age though. Like
well,
this isn't like movie in reverse. Like at that time you kind of you picked up on it.
yeah, only because I knew how to eat, because I knew that I had to go gain 25 pounds. So I knew
Yeah.
that Fruit Loops weren't going to get me there.
Yeah.
I didn't know as much as I know today about the macronutrients and the breakdown and all the chemicals in the diet and all, but I knew enough to know eggs are good and oatmeal is good and like peanut butter is good. We should eat a lot of those things, and we should eat less like Pop Tarts and Fruit Loops and things like that. Like we're going to make lunch. Let's like make sandwiches, but let's stack like protein on these. Let's not
Yeah.
make like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? So just little things like that, building workouts. Sometimes I would take my host families to the workout facilities, depending on which, where I was at. And it was just this gift that I would give back. And there's this one family out of Wyoming that I really enjoyed working with. And this was college baseball, actually. And I was out in Wyoming, and I basically helped with meal plan and fitness all summer. My host mom ended up having like a really great transformation. We weren't trying to, it just kind of happened. And, just being in their house, watching the family dynamics when each individual starts to get healthier.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. I recognized it in the moment. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like my influence on them is positive. Wow, that feels good. Like I like that. So I stored that feeling of satisfaction personally, right? I stored that. That made me happy to help them. And then bam, as soon as I got released, or AKA fired, they try to let egotistical athletes down easy by calling it released. I got fired because I wasn't doing my job anymore. And I ended up going back to Naples, Florida, in which on the plane ride back there, I was like, oh, that made me happy. Maybe I should just do that until I figure out real life. Because I didn't think that at the time, as soon as I got released, I didn't think that I could do fitness as a career, because everyone had conditioned me to believe that fitness was just like a stepping stone while you go get like a big girl or boy job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, was there a moment in time or an age or range where when you realized how contagious your energy is? Like your energy is infectious. Like when did you realize that I could walk in like this and I could just turn this whole thing in a different direction just by the way I show up?
Probably my freshman year of high school, to be
Okay.
honest with you,
All right.
because I was playing with the older guys.
Yeah.
My dad handed down his athletic genes to me.
Yeah.
I was like the only one in my family that got them. My older brother was a good athlete. Younger brother was had the body for it, but never really loved it, so wasn't that great. My sister, did sports, but wasn't like gifted at them or anything. I was, and he handed that to me, and so I was playing varsity sports as a freshman. And, I was just always the person that would show up and have this nice blend of, hey, we're going to get after it today, but we're also going to have so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
And that grew because my older teammates gave me that permission to be that person early on. I might be a different person if I walked onto those varsity clubs and the seniors were like, get out of here. Like if they didn't accept me for who I was, maybe I might be a different person today. But it was really impactful in the shaping of my character to have people that were older than me accept me. And then that kept happening as I would become a freshman in college, and then a rookie in pro ball, and then a 24, 25-year-old something that doesn't know anything that they're talking about, that's accepted by all these successful entrepreneurs that see that in you. So I always had energy and enthusiasm and like fitness knowledge as my trading cards. And, it's done well for me, and I don't have to manufacture it. It's just, I truly am enthusiastic about life. And I don't have to try, it shows up pretty naturally. And we all have that gift that God's like, hey, this is yours, go use it. And so I don't try to be anything outside of what I am. And now Burn is getting to the point where, my gift to the people at Burn is just that enthusiasm, energy, positivity, optimism. Yes, with the 12 people on my leadership team, we're going deep. We're talking face-to-face, hardcore, problem-oriented conversations. But everybody else, let's we need more fun. We need more playfulness. We need more positivity. We need more optimism in the world. And I think one of the things I can do is help be
Yeah.
a proponent of
Yeah,
it.
no, I find that a lot of leaders don't get to that point until a lot of them don't get there at all. And if they do, it's over time. Like they don't feel like they can be. It's like the Michael Jordan documentary, if you've seen that. Like they feel like in order to push everybody, they need to be a certain way, right? They need to
Right.
be the hammer. And my role is to get the end results. And for us to get the end results and help you get what it is you're trying to do, I have to lead you this way. But it's so palpable and visible that that's just been a piece of who you are. That was embraced early on, and you've really cultivated it. I just wanted to acknowledge you for that because it's very special. I don't see a
Well,
lot of people that have had that throughout.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to put it in perspective for people that, I'm in this position where I'm at with my company today. It didn't start that way. And that energy early on, a lot of it was that grind energy, right? A lot of it for the first 4 or 5 years was, hey, I mean, I've got to do the work because I don't have the time or the capital. So I've got to do it. And one of the hardest moments for me was the transition from, you know, all my years in baseball plus the first 5 years of Burn. It was all about competitive. How hard can you work? Outwork the other person across the table from you. And now I'm into this mode, and people will know that they're getting more successful if their business becomes easier. And you walk into the office one day and you don't have anything to do. That's your best marker of success, because as long as, all the KPIs are going in the right direction, right? Like, and you're there for that support, but you're not having to do it. And there's a transition that happens. So I'm kind of working out how to, back to that butterfly, like learning how to flap its wings in this season of my life. How do I got some new wings. This feels really good. How do these things work, right? And it's transitioning from like work into knowledge work, into kind of firing machine gun to like sniper, pow, right? Like pow, like 3 to 6 things a year that are really impactful, that it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy to cultivate the information to make a good decision. So the work just looks differently now. And so I guess my point is that energy will be this, like, this is my natural energy, but whether it's displaced into solving problems or, lighting up somebody that needs a lot of encouragement, you can take what your natural giftings and whatever the business is calling for at any given time, apply yourself. And then to me, I'm going to keep looking at life as 1 year at a time. I got to reinvent myself every single year. You've done this. People that you admire have done this. The people that show up that reinvent themselves consistently are freaking dangerous.
If you're like most overachievers, you're probably already thinking about 2025 and how you're going to level up even more, unleash your full potential, and reach your goals. Well, don't worry, I got you covered. I've gathered some of the most successful people in the world in both life and business who also happen to be my friends. Bradley, Ben Newman, Emily Ford, Amberly Lago, myself, and 15 other experts are ready to pour into you as you launch into 2025 stronger than ever. Join us for a free 4-day online event where we will share proven systems and skills to elevate your mindset, drive action, and unleash your full potential. Go to www.successunleashedsummit.com to register. Link is in the show notes. I'll see you there. Without question, I know that you work with a coach. I know that you work with a mindset coach, and it's very important to you to continue to grow and develop. Is there anything that you're open to share that through that work, through that personal development work that you've uncovered about yourself, that you decided that you're going to get better, maybe things that you didn't see that he saw?
Yeah. So his name is DG, Derek Grant. I didn't need a business coach. I didn't need a trainer, a physical coach. I didn't need a nutrition coach. What I needed was a spiritual coach.
Hmm.
And, the way that we look at things is that there are 3 planes. There's physical, there's mental, and then there's spiritual. And I didn't grow up in an environment in which the spiritual realm or the spiritual plane was made obvious to me in any given way. Now, whether people access this through religion or some type of other spirituality, the spiritual plane is abstract of any religion, and it's just a state, right? So the physical, mental, and the spiritual state. So we really look at things through those 3 lenses. And what DG has really helped me do is take information from that intuitive, that energetic place that we can't quantify,
Yeah.
and use that to bring down to the physical world through the mental, in which everything's quantified, and figure out how to connect all 3, not to grind in the physical plane, but to connect all 3 planes so that you have an alignment. So we're going from grind season
Yep.
to align season. And that's our big topic right now of discussion is, okay, now how do you do that? Well, one thing you do is you wake up every day. Well, you do an exercise and you say, hey, look at my day. Look at all the things that I have that I'm responsible for, that I'm going to do, or that I have coming up. And let's go through and let's categorize these things, one into grind and one into align, right? So are the things that are in alignment are the things that I actually get really excited about.
Mm.
When you're grinding, there's things that you have to do that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Follow me? And this is where people get burnt out, right? This is where I agree when the grind and the hustle culture gets demonized, because what we're actually doing is we're just filling our time full of things we actually don't want to do. That's a miserable life. But if you're doing 50% of the things you want to do and 50% of the things you don't want to do in the grind season, that's a pretty good balance. Like, there's no such world in building what I've built, at least from my perspective, without going through 5 years of like the rice and bean life. Not that it was that bad, because we did great early on even, but that mentality of like, there's half the shit that's going on here. I don't want to even want to do it today, but I have to. Yeah. Now it's 100% of the things that I get to do every day are a life that I've designed, and I earned that going through this period of time. So now I'm finding myself still having flashes of that like competitive athlete mentality of like, I got to kick your ass around every corner, every day. I got to be better than you every pitch. I got to be 3 steps ahead of you mentally, 4 steps ahead of you from a confidence perspective. And every waking hour of every waking day, I need to constantly be trying to get an advantage, or else I'm going to fail. That is useful in the grind season, not in the align season. Now I got to breathe, and I got to let go, and I've got to detach from these like arbitrary outcomes that is some time frame and some revenue goal at the end of the year. Still have the intentions, right? Still have the goals, still have the KPIs, have the intentions, set those intentions, but be disconnected on whether I reach them or not. Like, no matter whether we wake up tomorrow and it's a pandemic or it's the best day that's ever existed on earth, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to keep moving, and we're going to do the things that we as an organization were put here to do and give our gift back. And so I would say that that's the thing we're working on now is really categorizing what lights me up, like writing, sketching, art. Like, he's helping me realize that those 4 hours when I'm sitting down to draw like a realistic scene of like a lion fighting a bear, when I'm doing that, what's actually happening is all of those subconscious problems are wrestling themselves away, and I am just letting things go that weren't even important in the first place. And so giving myself a little permission with that mentality to do more things that I actually want to do. Like, I want to draw, but that's not productive. That's not productive was my old grind mentality, right? Yeah. So now it's like, no. When you draw, do it in a way that's inspirational to the people that you show, that can help, them become a better version of themselves. So as you can tell, I could blabble for hours, but we're kind of working all that out.
No, I love it. So do you ever find when you're doing that, when you're doing something that you really love, like drawing, do you ever accidentally solve other problems too that are happening in your business or life or marriage, or does anything else ever pop into your head during those times?
Most of the times, the ideas or the answers to solutions pop in my head in one of two places. It's usually not then, because I have to be that's not a meditation. That's like drawing's nothing more than a series of tiny, very small lines put together to form something that looks like a picture. Yeah, so you got to be real focused. Yeah. When I just intentionally let go, like sleep is one. So I'll wake up in the middle of the night. I have a sleep dream notebook, and I get things right to me, like right from the muse, like, and I write it down. And
no filters.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. That must just be like me had conditioning my brain so much to think about problem solving that they're coming up. And then when I'll like actively meditate. So I have like a morning routine. I hit it like 85% of the time where I'll just meditate in the sauna. So I'll sit in my sauna for 20 minutes and turn the heat on, pour a vat of water over the top of it, and then just sit there and go deep into usually like Kundalini style, like meditation. It's like breathing focused meditation. And I'll ask one question and one question only is I'll ask, reveal to me what I don't yet know. And I'll just sit there and meditate. And usually if I do it the right way, which is 50-50 because we're all humans who are chasing squirrels or have kids that knock on your door and scare the shit out of you halfway through your meditation. And you wake up from like the middle of space somewhere. And you're like, what's going on? And I'm from Zen to like, what do you guys want from me? Leave me alone. But yeah, during those, there'll usually be like a moment where I'm not really here for a second, and then bam, some type of idea or picture will come. And the dream ones are very obvious. The meditation ones are more like symbolic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then just that's few and far between. Usually the best ideas come from sitting down, talking to somebody, having a problem in front of you, bantering back and forth, disagreeing like crazy, like mad, and then, actively trying to get to the solution. So I would say active is like 90% of it. And then kind of things come to you as just the gifts that you didn't know you were going to get.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand all of that. So sticking with alignment for a second there, with all the conversations, and I know, I know that you're a very aware person. I know that you understand patterns in people. You have a lot of conversations, tons of conversations. You're probably reviewing everything that's happening in all your locations too. How many people, like if you could put a percentage on it, how many people do you think today are living in alignment?
If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say like less than 5. Yeah.
Same.
Today. Yeah. Today, I think probably about 25 to 30% have periods of alignment, but have not constituted that alignment as doctrine for themselves yet and need to do it for longer. A lot of times we'll get alignment because we're doing this. Let me give you an example from the fitness industry, right? That you're very familiar with. 30-day fat loss, bikini bottom program, whatever it is. Get your bikini in 30 days. Okay. I can feel super congruent, like right in the middle of that, because I've put myself into this short-term window in which I'm going to have this manufactured mentality. And I know it's going to go away because I've already said it's going to go away at 30 days. And then, as soon as day 31 comes, you go back, you kind of jump right back to that normal mindset, the breathe, the big breath, the relaxed, I don't have to do that anymore. I'm so glad. Right. So like you can feel super aligned and great. And you'll hear this because people are like, my nutrition and my fitness and I've been reading and I feel great. It's been 2 weeks. And then you talk to them 2 weeks later and they're like, I'm miserable, right? I stopped reading. I hadn't worked out. I had some momentum, right? So alignment is very fleeting is my point. So today, I think like any given day, there's 5% of people that are in constant alignment because they've done the work. And then it's incumbent upon those 5% that have done the work and then constituted that doctrine in their own life to then reach out, which is why I love what you're doing and I do the same thing just through my own vehicle through Burn, right? We both are reaching out to other people saying, hey, knock, knock, like here's an availability for you. Like here it is. It's available right here. Schedule it.
Yeah.
Like it's put it on your calendar and let's start to get congruent full time. And the last thing I'll say about that is when this is I've worked with so many people from a focus meeting perspective, which is what we do in our gyms. It's like the one-on-one consultation with our trainers. So we'll sit down, we'll have these focus meetings and they're unlimited and then they're ongoing whenever you need it, but at least once a month. And the vast majority of people don't feel alignment because they don't get encouragement. Now that is looking for something outside of yourself to feel good internally. But if momentum is broken up into little moments, sometimes you can be somebody that's really good at giving encouragement or just seeing something in somebody that they don't see in themselves. And you can start their momentum by giving them a moment. You follow me? And so that to me is just it's a profound notion. And so I live my life like that. I could be somebody's moment at any given time. And so I've always got to show up even when I don't feel, especially when I don't feel like showing up. I've got to show up knowing that like, hey, this could be the axiomatic change in their life right now, today, this conversation.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said, and I understand all of that, and it's interesting because when I first joined Burn and this focus meeting thing, I was like, I don't need that. I don't need somebody to like review my macros with me and what my fitness goals are, and it's like that's not even what it is, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's not. It's more about just letting you discover who you are.
Yeah,
Right? It's like just giving you some space to say, so, hey, have you ever thought about what you wanted and why you want it?
yeah,
And it's as fluffy of a question that is, and you know this, and I'm sure at Success Unleashed Summit here in January, you're going to talk a lot about this. But the knowledge and knowing versus the actual doing, that's the great separator. And people know what to do, but until they're encouraged and believed in somebody and get an opportunity to say, oh wait, that person I really admire believes in me. Wow. Okay. At least I'll just do this first thing for them.
yep,
And then, oh, okay, well, man, that feels kind of good for me. Maybe I'll do it for them and me. This feels kind of good for me. And they just get that momentum. So you're a momentum starter. I call it fire starter. And
yep,
you're a fire starter. I'm a fire starter. The people that you're going to have at your conference are fire starters. And I just really believe that it's incumbent upon us as the 5% that have that alignment to, and DG and I talk about this a lot too, is like, we got to show people path to all
yeah,
3 planes.
yep,
That's our job, is
yep,
to get, back to like personality psychology, right? Maslow is like the most famous one.
yeah,
Hierarchy of needs, love and belonging, number 4, self-actualization, number 5. Highest form of human need is to actualize thyself, is to find out how good I really am. What is my potential? So, you know, the what people like to coin as like high achievers, or I'd say people who are in high alignment or highly congruent individuals. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with success or fame. It has everything to do with spiritual, physical, mental congruency. Am I who I say I am, and am I happy with that version of myself? Am I in constant pursuit of progress toward my version of success? And if the answer is yes, that's congruency. So we got to then pull people along and show them how badass they really are and how worth it they really are.
Yeah. And, I always say to be the person you're not is to waste the person that you are. And but I didn't believe it either that I could make money, I could be successful, wildly successful just by being myself, just by tapping in. And the more I become her, the more, and there's still layers upon layers, right? I feel like I get closer to her. And when I think I'm there, then I settle in even deeper. And it's like, wow, there's this more beautiful piece that emerges. And the more I do that, Devin, that's when all the magic happens. That's when, like, it's like, is this really happening in my life? Like, is this like, and my emotional home is to think everybody's trying to scam me or take me for, right. And so there's been something that's been happening recently, and three people approached me, and I was talking to one of my accountability partners, a dear friend, but she knows everything. And so she's got permission to call me out on it. And she's like, "You're being an idiot right now, Christy, because like you're going to miss all of this because you think everybody's trying to scam you. But the reality of it is they all see the same thing in you, and you need to pick one and run with it." Right. And
Right.
I'm on this mission to help people realize that you can have this alignment. And most of us think that we're there, but you talk about it in your book. It's the outside conditioning. So it's not the core of who you actually are. And once you get to your core identity, that's where all those things happen that you're talking about. That's when it's like you could do it all day long. It feels effortless. You forget to eat. It's like, oh my gosh, and I get paid for this now, right? And I'm like, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's baking pies, if it's mowing lawns. You can do this, and this is the definition of success. And so that's where I think we need to get real loud. This 5% needs to get real loud to show people that that's the secret. And you don't want to get, again, as you say, to your rocking chair moment of regret and go, man, right? Like I was living somebody else's dream. I was doing this for my parents. I was doing it because I thought she had it or he had it. But you know what? Who are you? And most people don't know who they are. And I feel like if you feel this friction inside, it's like then just pay attention to that. And because life is hard, and you bootstrapped this whole thing, like listening to your story. And you're so resourceful. Like the fact that people probably think that you founded this gym and then you had this plan to go franchise, but the reality of it is, like, you're giving out t-shirts in a grocery store parking lot to get your name out there, to get
Yeah.
people to come to the another parking lot to work out with you. Like, you freaking bootstraps. It reminds me of Sarah Blakely's story of Spanx. Like, she wore that t-shirt everywhere, right? You know about Spanx? Like, it's selling
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
everything, and then people
Yeah.
think it's just, but you had a love for this connection of the way that you made people feel, and you went and you made it happen. And so I get the grind, I get the hustle, and sometimes just recognizing that, hey, I have to do this right now. I have to do this, but I'm still in alignment. But like, some of these things need to be outsourced here soon. But getting to alignment is like, oh my gosh. And I just love, again, I stumbled upon Burn. I read the book Atomic Habits, and I constantly evaluate, like, where's the friction? Where do I still have friction? What's heavy? What's heavy? And I would get to my workouts, and I'm like, damn, if there's a place where procrastination's coming in, it's right there. And I read that book, and I got jealous of the ballerina story in that book. And jealousy is always occluded me, like, okay, well, what does she have that you don't? Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
so all she did was put on her shoes and go hail a cab, and then everything was waiting for her there. And I was like, that's what I need in my workouts. That's what I need. I just need to freaking show up. And then the things that surprised me that I didn't even know that I needed, but you knew it because you study human psychology, is the community, the high fives. I freaking love music. So I love the music. I love the trainers, and then everything is designed in a certain way to get certain outcomes too. So that's how I found Burn. Was I was like, man, I moved uptown. I can't find a gym. This is heavy. where can I make things easy? I just need to make them easy. So can you talk a little bit about the science behind burn? Because it's not just like you picked a few things and this is how we do it. Like there's a reason why everything exists there. Like what's the psychology? What's the science of the whole process?
Yeah, there's not been much that has not been thought out and contemplated very deeply. And it all goes back to the foundation, right? We fall in love with our members and their challenges, but also their desires. We don't fall in love with our business model, right?
Yeah.
Because the business model itself can change. The business model has changed. Do you remember curves?
Yeah. Yep.
Enough said, right? Like, so they fell in love with their business model because if they fell in love with their members, they would have realized 6 years before that they realized it, that their style was going out because they weren't listening. They weren't listening to anybody. And so for us, it's always been about that. It's been about let's study, going back to the baseball stories when I was staying with host families. Let's study that person. Let's study that mom, because I know the outcome of what happens when they start to get positive energy in their life via good inputs, right? Food, fitness, good content. Okay, so then let's go reverse engineer a business model that addresses the core, never changing human needs that that person specifically would put up in their hierarchy, right?
Yep.
And so, okay, so then you started this, we call it the problem identification exercise, right? So who is that person? We already knew it, right? A middle, mid-30s mom of three whose idea of fun is like pizza night and cookies on a Friday, but wears Lululemon on Monday, hits the Monday workout, but like won't hit the workouts the rest of the week, just to say that she at least did it one time. And, life will get really busy. Oh, but it's all justified, by the way, because she literally puts everything above herself. And in her priority list, she's number 12. And her kids are usually number one, husband number two, and or God number three, or some, order of those top three, and then friends, and then coworkers, and then blah, 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 go down the list, and you're in the double digits. This was a big issue because we all know that, one of the fundamental human needs is love and belonging, right? Which is why all of those other people are up that list. But there's one that we forgot to talk about: self-actualization, which puts you unequivocally at number one. And so once we started talking like that, this was like the beginning of burn, where all of our messaging was talking like that, right? Like, and then you start to go in and you get to know people, and you have thousands of focus meetings. Curiosity is like one of my best traits. I'll sit there with somebody who is seemingly uninteresting, and they'll be the most interesting human being in the world to me. And then over time, you figure out, what does falling in love with your members or your customers or your clients or your patrons, whatever, what does that really mean? Like, what's the definition of that? Well, for us, it was to provide a place that takes care of all the major human needs under one roof for this specific person. And a lot of that has nothing to do with fitness, fortunately. So fitness is like the fire pit, if you will, for us. Nobody comes to the listen. Nobody, like I say, nobody, maybe a handful of people intrinsically enjoy the pain, but nobody enjoys the pain of fitness the same way nobody enjoys like the smoke and the heat of being too close to the fire. You don't go to the fire pit for the fire. You don't go to burn for the workout. Yeah, it keeps you warm. Yeah, but you go for the community. You go for the people that are around the fire, the fireside conversation. You go for the people that are inside of the building. And, when the CEO of Peloton said, hey, we're going to do 400 million bikes because the future of fitness is isolation inside of the home. People aren't going to leave the home. They're going to get groceries inside. They're going to get their workouts inside the future. This was middle of the pandemic. Well, that was the wrong bet. And as soon as I heard that bet, I was like, yeah, that's the wrong bet, because you are betting against the most immovable force in human nature, is the needs of the fundamental universal human needs. And so putting people in prison and isolating them to four walls of a cell is the highest form of punishment on the planet. So how could that be the way of the future in terms of our industry? So that's, I think, my initial thoughts on your question, but it's never done. The knowing knowing our member, now it's very contextual. It's not just one kind of like person anymore. Now it's, man, there's 20 different types of kind of member that has this kind of set of problems generically, right?
Yep.
Everybody's
Yep.
individually unique, but man, do we know some of these things on what a human who is in an emotional recessed place, man, do we know what they need to get out of that? And it's in hint, it's not alone. You're not alone
Yeah.
doing anything you don't pull yourself out of those places, right? That you
Yeah.
don't do
No.
that. You need other people to give you that little bit of encouragement, that little momentum, and it starts to stack up over the years.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite words is momentum and getting yourself in momentum and knowing you're in momentum and how did you get in momentum and how do you stay there? And a lot of that you alluded to before too with energy. I mean, you can manufacture some of this stuff to get yourself out of one state and into another. And working out does so much of that. But I love that from my perspective, with especially the mom, especially that mom that's putting herself last. I feel like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, that you're giving her permission. Like you're granting her permission to take care of herself. And what I find in this world is everybody's seeking permission to be themselves, to do what they want to do. But I feel like that area, it's almost like talk about needing a whole village of people to convince somebody it's okay to take
Mm-hmm.
care of yourself. Do you feel like
Yeah,
I'm not a mom, so that's like
no, I
I feel
understand
like that's
exactly.
true, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think we have the same intention. I would probably language it a little bit differently than we give
Yeah.
people permission. I would say that what we actually do for them is we give them the language that they've been looking for to give themselves the permission. They just didn't know how to ask the right question. They had the answer in
Mm,
mind, but they weren't asking the right question. And so what we're able to do is to offer up some consideration to say, hey, have you ever what is your worldview? Like,
yeah.
how do you look at yourself? What's your perspective? Is it right? Is it somebody else's? Is it yours?
Mm,
Oh, what we said in our campaign, like all of our campaigns are designed to do just that, right? Is
yeah.
to be the language for somebody to translate on the basis of universal human needs, to give them language that in their head we know is going to translate into an unlock for them.
Yeah.
And just and now and we're both big fans of Tony Robbins, and one of his things is breakthrough, and
Yeah.
that's all he means by breakthrough is I don't have language that I need in order to give myself a worldview that's better for me. I know what the outcome is, but I know the what, but I don't know the how. Okay, so
Mm,
what's the how? How do I do it? Okay, well, I don't know is usually the answer. The how is the hardest part. People always stop themselves because of the how. And so I want to eliminate that barrier. And so when we give them permission, what we're really doing is giving them language, and now it's up to you to download that or not, for it to resonate with you or not. And now we're talking about emotional human connection and its intersection with ABCDE test marketing, ad campaigning. And now how do I marry my ad campaigns up with the desired emotion that I'm trying to elicit out of any given sector or vector of my persona base, or the individuals, the 20 that I'm talking to, and how do I market to them more effectively? Not market to them, or what I mean by
communicate.
that is how do I message to them in a
Yeah.
way that's going to resonate with the language they've been looking for.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like you don't want to speak French to somebody who can only understand German, right? So it's just
Right.
like, yeah, how is this going to land? I need to make sure that she understands what I'm saying to her. Can you talk a little bit about what happens to somebody when they work out? Now, there's so many stories that I hear, and so many leaders that get their people, get their teams in the gym, and yes, there's a physical transformation, and there's a lot of benefits to that. But what is really happening inside of that person when they're working
So
out?
yeah, no, that's a great question. Let me stay metaphorical rather than like scientific, because I
Yep.
think losing people with like dopamine and endocannabinoids and all that gets a little bit dry. Let me say this: that when you're doing, there's three levels to what people would just call working out. Right? There's activity, which is like walking outside. There's the exercise, which might be like cycling or yoga, and then there's demanding training. Right? This is the one that builds character. The other two are great for you physiologically, right? And they have some psychological benefits. But if you want to take your life to the next level, it's introducing yourself to things voluntarily that you actually don't want to do. It's actually putting yourself in a position to suffer. This is much why people get addicted to tattoos. It's kind of the same pathway, pathology. So when you show up to a workout, you're going to go through most people are a little bit nervous or fearful or have some type of emotion down the negative spectrum of emotion associated to the workout anyway, initially, until they have been conditioned enough times of what I'm going to say is actually true. But initially, it's all pain. Oh, I don't want to feel the pain. Well, what the pain is that I want you to lean into, it's the suffering that bonds us all together. It's the pain that we're going through. It's the thing that you don't want to do. It's the very thing that's going to create the congruency, the alignment in your life. It's going to introduce to you stimulus that will demand more out of you than you've ever going to demand out of yourself. And when that happens, you then now almost metaphorically step over this barrier. Like you step over this barrier, call it doubt, call it insecurity. You step over that doubt, insecurity barrier, which might metaphorically work out as like a dumbbell. I might come up to you, Christy, and be like, hey, that 25 is looking pretty light on that one. I think you got 35s in you, no problem. And you're like,
you sound just like Leslie.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out to Leslie. She's an amazing trainer. But we know all of that is designed because we know that's going to be a barrier of doubt for you potentially.
Yeah.
Right. So if we get that little reaction of, I don't know, boom, that's us as trainers. We have to get this weight in that person's hands.
Yeah.
Because I use the word suffering so like enthusiastically, and I know that's counterintuitive for most people, but the suffering that you achieve, the pain that you achieve by lifting that 35-pound weight actually is sharpening the confidence muscle simultaneously. This is why there's no such difference between mind and body when you're in that third level of training. The mind is the body, right? The thing that you don't believe that you can do, and then you do it, instantly translates through neuroplasticity into a new rewiring of circuitry. Right now, I all of a sudden have this little dim ember of this neurocircuitry that I didn't have before that says, oh, you can do that. And now I become somebody who can do hard things. And I show up to the gym every day and I start to fall in love with suffering. Show me something outside in this world that's going to be harder, more painful than the suffering that Leslie takes you through when you damn near think your arms are going to fall off. And she's like, more. It just conditions you to become a person who can do hard things. Yeah. Call this mental resilience, call it human resilience. I mean, you think if you're somebody that can like work out hard, get in cold water or get in hot air, and you can be in those are the three physical tests to me that build mental resiliency. That's what it's all about. And then you caveat, okay, we're building our musculature, we're going through hypertrophy, and we're going to actually have a good looking body too. And we get to grow our hippocampus, we get to grow our brain cells, we get to live longer and more healthy through our 80s. Great. That's great. We'll do that too. But mental resilience in the moment is that immediate payoff for people.
Yeah. So tell me, are there any success stories that come to mind for you, or people that, they've had transformations, they've come to burn, but like, because everything you're talking about then transfers outside of the workout, right? So like it starts there, but like doing hard things, now they've proven themselves that they can do hard things. And I'd imagine that now they're doing it in all areas of their life, whether they realize it or not in the beginning. But are there any stories that come to mind?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I go to a gym, and one of my favorite things that I get to do in my career is I get to travel to all the gyms. I've almost been to all of them. We've been growing so damn fast that I can't get to all of them. But I'm constantly on the road, like maybe 40-50% of my year, just being out, listening, being with our people, learning from them. Like I get to show up and going back to like the imposter kind of syndrome where like, wait, I get to do this every day and actually get paid for this. I get to show up in a glorified adult jungle gym and make millions of dollars and help hundreds of thousands of people just doing that. Like that, there's a lot more that's gone into it in the past, but today that's pretty much my job. It's pretty cool. Makes it worth going through all those years of that 50% grind that you didn't want to do now that you're here. Right. So rephrase it again so I can grab it.
Just a success story. So like, so, as an example, like I interviewed Brian Benstock when I first launched this podcast, and Brian has the number one Honda and Acura dealer like 16 years in a row, right? And so, to me, it's like success leaves clues. I love systems. I know you're about that too. You have them everywhere in your business. But he was talking about this young person who was on his sales team, and he got him in the gym, right? And so now this kid lost like 35 pounds, and so now he's running marathons. And then he comes back to Brian, and Brian's probably in his mid 50s, and Josiah tells Brian like, "Hey, uh, like, have you noticed my sales numbers, right? And he tells him that he connected the dots for him and said, Brian, I think all of this started because we started working out together, right? And Brian is this is what he does, and so he's like, oh, really, right? All the while knew that that was where everything started for him, right? So everything changed and morphed in Josiah because he started getting in the gym, and then he started to believe in himself, and then he started to do hard things, then he did harder things, then he's feeling even better about himself. And so now it's like
Yeah.
every area of his life has transformed. And I'd imagine that there's freaking hundreds of thousands of stories, because I personally believe that that morning routine and getting in the gym is if you read anybody's success, it's a piece of it, right? Like and I'm not just talking about like one vertical of your life. You're successful in business, but to me that's not success. To me is like, okay, well, how's your relationships and how's your body, right? I feel
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
working out is such a like it's the starting place, like it's the foundational piece. So I was just curious if there's any like success stories, transformations, both like mind, body, spirit, probably, that you've seen from members that have come in and you're like, wow, she's just like unrecognizable. She's believing in herself. She's doing these huge things now.
Yeah, no, 100%. Listen, like I was saying, I go to the gyms, I stand there, and I get, I'm so grateful to be able to like have, an hour and a half to where people just want to take a couple minutes a piece to just share their story with me.
Yeah.
And, some of my favorite ones are the franchise partner stories, right? Because our business has grown based on the physical transformation, cup runneth over, now filling in all these other cups in your life. And one story that sticks out to me, a multi-unit franchise partner that we have, she started in child watch. And
Mm.
so this is the entry
So
level
she was a
position.
babysitter. She was
Yeah, yeah,
watching the
yeah, yeah.
kids.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. We have child watch at all of our facilities, and she did child watch, and then she got a little confidence from that and she's working out the whole time, right? Like had never worked out before, pretty much a day in her life. And her sister drags her into to burn. I use that word intentionally because that's what the word she would use, and so she can't afford a membership at the time, so then she just does child watch to offset the membership, then ends up becoming lead child watch, and then comes over to the behind the desk and does lead child watch, and we call it burn ambassador, our front desk position, and then key burn ambassador, which is the leader of basically the gym when it's open, and then to operations manager, and then before you know it, she's a franchise partner. And she went from not being able to afford a membership 7 years ago to being able to now afford a franchise,
Crazy.
right? And she
Crazy.
started at the very bottom ranks, and not that I don't say that in a negative way, but that's just like the entry level position at Burn,
Yeah.
right? It's such an important position for us, definitely. So it's not bottom of the ranks by any means, but that trajectory up that pay scale is it's pretty wild. And there's another individual story we wrote about in the book that we wrote. It's called Burn: the inner and outer 5-step inner and outer strategy to inner and outer strength, or the 5-step strategy to inner and outer strength. Sorry. And
Which, by the way, is like it's just like the encyclopedia of life, in my opinion. Like if you want a how-to, it's like it's such a self-help. Morgan and I talked about it on our podcast. If you guys who are listening want to recap that, you should all go read it. But it's like you open that up, and I'm like, okay, I have everything I need right here.
yeah, it's definitely a high level starter, personal development, like getting into my journey, just getting like, let me set the foundation of what does a healthy lifestyle look
Yeah,
like,
here it
right?
is.
It just
Here's the 360. Yep.
here's the picture of it. Now let's go talk a little bit about each one of these and give you some strategies to help you get jump started, get some momentum. And Cynthia's in that book, and one of the things that I think is most noble that Burn has been attributed to helping women do specifically is leaving really toxic relationships. So like physically abusive relationships, like my parents used
Hmm.
to be in. I have a special insight to that, given that I watched my mom go through all this suffering with my father. And man, she resorted to running, right? Like that's how bad it was. She had to run away or otherwise she couldn't just move across town. Like that wouldn't work out. She had to run away. And I don't blame her for that. There's some nobility in that. If you look for it, but Cynthia had really found her confidence at Bern, right? And sort of getting around herself with surrounding herself with people that knew who they were and knew their worth.
Yeah.
And then would look at Cynthia and then would look at the situation that she's in and say, girl, there's a mismatch here, right? Like she had people that were like accountable, like holding her accountable, which any highly functional family does that, right? Any dysfunctional family like sweeps things under the rug and like isn't accountable to things, but like highly functional families, accountability and honesty are at the forefront. And so she had a couple people in her life via Bern in the community that just gave her that little momentum, that little right? The little nudge, like, girl, like, you sure you're happy? Because the way I look at it, I don't see the same thing. You sure? I'm here for you. I watch your back. And she ended up, going through a lot, getting a divorce, moving out of state, starting a new life. And we cover it all in the book and we go into more emotional depth there. But that to me has been a theme. Listen to me, like I'm proud of people that are getting divorced, but not all relationships are meant to be together. And I watched my mom and dad stay in a relationship that was a lose all the way around. And so, if we can be a catalyst for people to actualize themselves and realize that the environment that they're building in their life is their control for the most part, like,
and no matter where you are, no matter where you are, no matter how in deep you think you are, you can change it. You can get out of that. You can start to back yourself out of that.
100%. Sometimes you might not know where to start.
Yeah.
Listen to Christy. I mean, it's you're in the right place. Sometimes you're probably that for more people than I even know. Like just that force of encouragement that just gives people a little bit of gasoline on an empty tank, right? Like I think that's a great metaphor. What happens if you're driving down the road and you run out of gas? Like you're not like, unless you're right next to a gas station, you can't help yourself. You need a little gas from somebody else to go get it and bring it to you in order to get the momentum, get to the next gas station and fill your cup up. So
yeah, thank you for saying so. But community is so important, and it's there's a lot of people that they have no one. They have no one that thinks like them. They have no one that's tied to their core values. If they actually understand what their core values are, there's nobody. So they think that they start to believe or just they have no support. So finding somebody, and for the longest time for me, and it was for you when you found the power. Tony's first CDs was like my friends when I started to change my life were people that I still don't even know, right? Like there were books and podcasts, but that was the stuff that was in my ears all the time. Like I needed that to be able to take action. So as we get a little closer to closing here, talk to me about, how important is choosing the right partner?
Yeah. I'm probably the worst person to ask that question too, because I feel like the universe chose my partner for me. I really haven't
Or
had
maybe staying with the partner that the universe chose, right? Recognizing that you have the right partner.
Yeah, no, it's everything. It's just to have that right person and to recognize that you have somebody in your corner. And to me, it's all a game of expectations. Relationships I see that don't work out are ones that have expectations of one another. I got married to my wife because I loved her exactly for who she was, the person that she was, the core values that she exuded, the mind that she had. She's a beautiful human being as well externally, but more beautiful internally. And for me, it was about recognizing that although there are things that if I were her, I would do differently, that's not what's important. And that projection of expectations onto somebody else is the most unfair you could be in a relationship, is to project onto somebody what you want them to be, right? We've been talking about that basically this entire time, and how many people will listen to this and get it in a business context and then turn around and do the exact opposite at home, right? And if your home life is fundamental to you like it is for most people, then you're really going to want to pay attention, have a guardian at the doorway of your home, and ensure that relationship is one that is highly functional, that rushes to conflict, that's you hold each other accountable and honest. And also, here's the probably the most important thing. I know I've said the most important thing a few times, but they're all important. It's that the person that is in your household with you, that you do not need their approval. That you do not need their approval. If they put these expectations on you and they're putting heavy weights on you, it is not incumbent upon you to fulfill those expectations.
Yeah.
That is the number one way to live a suffering marriage, is to try to fulfill the perfection that somebody else projects onto you. And then that creates this state of approval where now I walk on eggshells in my own house because I'm seeking your approval and I'm not getting it. If you don't like what I'm wearing today, okay, I don't need your approval.
Mm-mm.
If it bothers you that much, it's not my expectation for things not to bother you. Man, that stinks that what I wear really bothers you that much. Is that really what's bothering you? Is there something deeper that we could talk about? And it's just this open layer of communication. Morgan and I started off just like not knowing what hats we were going to wear.
Yeah.
We would wear, whatever hat we felt in the moment, but we wouldn't communicate with that with the other person. And so we physically started putting hats on. CEO, take that one off.
Yeah,
Put
I had asked her
mom.
that in the interview. I
Yeah.
said, "Okay, how do you guys do this?" He's a visionary. He's probably got 9,000 ideas. She's wired more like me, like processes. Now you got children and family. Like, how do you do that? And she said, "Well, I'll say like, well, what hat you wearing right now?" Right?
And then the last piece of that is that I give Morgan as the lead, because this is necessary when you're a couple that also runs a business together, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where the
Whew.
lines get blurred for a lot of
Yeah.
people. I gave her the tiebreaker as the CEO of the company, right? We're
Mm.
co-CEO model, so I'm the visionary, she's the CEO, but the CEO title is reserved for her because she gets the tiebreaker. She oversees and integrates everything. So the way the org chart stacked is it's Devan, direct downline to Morgan, rest of the company, right? So I'm there to help her. I'm there for strategy work. I'm there for direction, for vision, for reconciling any unreconcilable problems with her. But at the end of the day, if we have an idea on the table and we're 50-50, she gets the automatic 51-49. And she has exercised that. It's not too often, but she's exercised it before. And I think that's really important, right? Is to make sure that kind of what seat am I in, what hat do I have on, and then try not to, as best as you can, try not to play this like expectation and approval game. Oh, your expectation of me is this. I'm going to try to do it your way so that you approve of me. And if you don't play that game, I think your chances to be successful, especially in business and marriage, go up significantly.
Any plans for a book, like a book on relationships with you two? Relationships or working with your partner? I mean, there's a lot here. You guys,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I like to write. We got 2 publications out now. One of them, the Burn one, made the USA Today bestsellers list, so that was really cool to see that people are reading the works that we put
I mean,
together, and so
that's a huge accomplishment.
yeah, I was
What is that,
very
like
proud of it.
40,000 people and a very, that's a lot. Like in a very short period of time, there's got to be millions of people that have purchased that book by now.
Yeah, no, it's not millions. I
No?
think it's not millions. It's definitely a heavy 5-figure number.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is. It's not millions. No, millions would be nice. But
The next one.
we probably knew that it wasn't going to be $1 million copy book because it was Burn branded, and it was
Yeah.
written specifically for like people. It was written to be like a blueprint or a manifesto of like what we actually stand for as a brand at the highest level. And so, in the future, now that that's here and that box is filled, I really enjoyed JD Vance's book Hillbilly Elegy, and I believe that our story, the relationship type of advice and things like that you're alluding to, I would really like to see what it's like to put together a kind of like a semi autobiographical memoir that's like walks like half the personal and professional and relational development, like that lifestyle and unpacking that, but also half story and written from like a first person narrative by me, I think would be really cool and interesting. I've got so many crazy ass stories from like my wild childhood that would be very entertaining. And
Everybody
so,
wants to read that stuff, man. Like, that's
yeah,
the juice.
yeah, like all the subjective, really unique stuff that nobody else could ever write about,
Yeah.
is what I'm interested in writing about. I'll probably have a flurry in the next. I tend not to like set in stone on calendar what I'm going to do, like creative works. I just let them come. There's enough of that. Like you got to do this at 1 o'clock today, Devin, right? Like 1 to 2:30, you got to go over the reports today. It's like, okay, when can I go write and draw? That's what I'm looking forward
When
to.
can I color?
Yeah, when can I go color? So
So
yeah, at some point I'll have like a burst of like 3 months of energy where I'll put something together, and we'll see what it looks like after that, and how But that's probably something along those lines. I've been thinking about it, but I'm
yeah.
really just trying to bask in this one. It's only been out for a handful of months, and
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very new.
we're trying to bask in it and keep it going.
So when you have a daughter now, and just thinking about your upbringing, like uh the odds were so stacked against you that you were going
Yeah,
to turn out to be this amazing husband and
yeah.
father, right? And so you and Morgan were together since you were 12 years old. I mean, her parents embraced you from the jump, right? They were there.
They love me.
Yeah.
They didn't like me.
Oh, okay.
not
Yep,
not
yep, yep.
originally. They
Yeah.
loved me, but they didn't like me. They saw it in me, but
Yeah.
listen, I was an unsupervised
Yeah.
shithead 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old kid getting in trouble, emulating the male role models in my life, and all I saw them do was drink and smoke and infidelity and drugs, hard drugs and fist fights and bars on Tuesdays and pints of pints for lunch and things like that. So my perspective of good behavior was don't get caught and don't get kicked off the baseball team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I walked that line. So for that reason, I don't blame them for not
What do you think is different
letting me.
about you though? So, for all the girls that are chasing the bad boys, or all the right, like what was different about you? That was there one thing, or more than one thing?
Well, that's I think you any one of us in the context of you is a very complex thing. So I don't think that there's like one simple, kind of conceptualized answer, that like one simple thing that explains such a complexity. But I would say that a love for learning, like I just was from the personal power kind of Tony Robbins anti-skip Walkman CD days. I never stopped.
Yeah.
I never stopped. And sometimes people that are in a position where their parents are pretty good humans, they got good core value. They might have made a lot of mistakes in life. They might have some flawed mindset, fundamental belief systems that they pass on. But like, did a good job raising you. Like sometimes it's hardest to be successful in life when that's the case,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't the hey, I've got endowment parents who you're gonna, they created like I'm gonna be that for my kids. Like I'll be in the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, right? And then you have the opposite side where it's like the 1% of the 1% on the poverty side, and then you have everybody in the middle. Everybody in the middle, that's the hard in my opinion, that's the hardest place,
Mm.
because when you have the resources and you're at the top 1%, well, you got the resources, right? And so now the only variable is your parents' character that they gave to you. So if they gave you great character and you got the great resources, you're probably going to do something with your life. If you don't have any parents, right, all you see is the negative. You don't have any positive role models. Like, how do you get that exposure? And in the middle, you have good parents, but they might have screwed up along the way. And they might have said, like, they might have taught you, like, hey, it is what it is. They might have taught you, like, hey, you know, too much risk equals too much pain. Like little things like that, where it's like you just move forward with this mindset. That's not right. I should disinstall that, but I won't, because I've got love for my parents. They didn't do anything wrong. They taught me that. That's the right way to be. So that to me is the people that really want it, but they're confused. It's like it's much easier for somebody at rock bottom or at the tippy top, because everything's more clear.
Yeah. Well,
There's
you
nowhere to
you are
go.
very humble. I mean, you are very, very humble. You are so unique. You are such a special individual. I mean, to hear your
Oh, thanks.
story, and to realize that Burn is like one of the most successful franchise stories in history, right? Like, you're how many 500 locations that are assigned now?
Yeah, 587.
587 assigned. How many are open at this moment?
For just open 119, 419.
I mean, seriously, like
Yeah,
this
it's
is
been crazy.
it is incredible. It is remarkable. I think you and Morgan are amazing. If there are people that want to start a franchise, want to start working out with you, want to get your meals, want to get your supplements, where do we point to? The website, social
Yeah,
media?
you can,
Yeah.
burnbootcamp.com. You can just go there and check it out, or there's shop.burnbootcamp.com. If you want to check out the meal, we've got freshly sealed meals that we deliver every single week that are
Yeah.
really delicious. If you're looking to fill some nutritional gaps, we have Afterburn, our peanut butter cup Afterburn bars, like our best seller. It's delicious. You can get that online as well. An array of other supplements, from protein powders that are all custom made to pre-workouts to collagen to creatine. Most of our members are on creatine at this stage. So yeah, that's shop.burnbootcamp.com, as well as all of our activewear and stuff there if you want to check that out. But if you want to join a gym, burnbootcamp.com. We always have like a free trial somewhere. It's sometimes different depending on where you go, but go to burnbootcamp.com and you can route to the website will take you to your closest gym. And if you're not near a gym, but you are interested in Burn, then Burn on Demand, which is our app. You can download the Burn Bootcamp app and join our online gym that does the same protocol Monday through Friday. We live stream out of the studio here in Huntersville. It's got like
So
hundreds
many
of
resources.
videos on it.
Last
Yeah.
question for you. If there's somebody who's listening to this who is like, "Oh, I'll start on Monday," what do you want to say to them?
Then you don't know what you want yet. That you need
Mm,
to ask yourself the question that Christy and I were talking about of what do I want and why do I really want it?
yeah.
Because Monday should be the most exciting day of the week, because now everybody's back to work. When you've been thinking about getting after it all weekend, and and you're playing with your kids and you're out to dinner with your family and your friends, you're still doing that stuff, right? But in the back of your mind, you're still thinking and contemplating and campaigning and putting things together while everybody else isn't, and they're like completely going to rest. Man, when Monday hits, everybody's back online. You get to go back to work and catch up from all the weekend stuff that you've been thinking about. So to me, if Mondays are miserable to you, well, then you're just on the wrong frequency of energy in life.
Yeah.
You're not aligned. You're in the grind. You're not in alignment. And yeah, that's a sign. That's a sign if Mondays are miserable. Fridays, I hate Fridays. Everybody's like leaving. They're all excited to go home. I'm talking to like my vendor partners and like, yeah, I can't wait for Friday. I'm like,
Oh
but can't
man.
we go a little bit longer? Can't you guys go to like 5:30 or 6? Like, you have to bow out now. I just have so much. You got to have fun
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. If you're not having fun, what's the point? If you're not able to be playful, what's the point? If you're like misery, like you easily can avoid misery with a few decisions. So yeah,
Thank you.
we got to fall in love with our Mondays.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're amazing, Christy. Thank you as well. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And there's not a lot of people in my life. DG's one of them. You're now one of them that I get to have deeply introspective conversations with, and that in this stage of my life that's what I need. I need that to fuel my soul
Yeah, I
and to
appreciate you
have high
saying
level
that.
conversations. So
I'm on the same quest, I'm on the same quest. These people, it's amazing how large and small your world can get at the same time, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Right.
for
So
sure.
having those deep conversations, and I got to say, we do have to catch a workout together. And
Oh, for sure.
I've had a little bit of anxiety thinking that you're going to come in on like an athletic conditioning day or one of these days that I'm like, oh, I don't like it today. I'm like, I'm
I
going to
might
get
show up
there
and
and he's
surprise
going
you.
to be waiting for me. Somehow he knows I'm here today.
Yeah, that would be cool. We should definitely do that. We'll get a workout in and would enjoy your company, and that'd be cool. Maybe I should come down there and train with Leslie. That'd be fun.
Okay, let's do it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for being
well,
here. Can't wait till next
yeah,
time.
yeah. I look forward to Success Unleashed in January too. That's gonna be super fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the message that you're going to deliver to everybody. It's a great
Yeah,
time. It's a
it's gonna
great
be great.
time.
I'm gonna start doing some things here in the next couple weeks as I look toward my January marketing calendar. So look forward
Awesome.
to it.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Thanks for being here.
See you, buddy.
Bye.